Hey, GI Customs here. We're going to do something different this week. We're going to do a little face-to-face. We're going to do the top 5 things that I think new customizers make mistakes on or get caught up in that will hopefully help you move on and get some projects done on your own. It might also give you a little insight to just how I think about things as I go about them. So hopefully you enjoy this. These are my top 5, and thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Number 1, first thing I see on most posts and different things that I've learned myself to get through is the type of paint that you use. A lot of people use the craft paints, and those, though they're great paints for different diorama pieces and background and large areas, or walls or backdrops, something like that, they're real hard to get thin enough to paint well on figures, in my opinion. You want to go with something more like a Vallejo paint or some of the other miniature type paints. Big thing is that they're going to make it real smooth and thinner, which is going to allow the paint to sit nicer on your items. A lot of the action figures and stuff that are being customized have fine details and smooth areas, and you're going to want to minimize the brush strokes and stuff as much as possible. Another thing to keep in mind with painting is make sure that you're using thin layers. So it's better to have 2, 3, 4, 5 thin layers of a certain color if you're having a hard time covering an area, than it is to have one thick layer that gets rid of all your detail. So don't be afraid to build up some real thin layers. It's going to allow a lot of your colors to cover better, but it's also going to allow those details from the figures and from the molds and sculpts to come through better. Number 2. Second thing I go for all the time, and it's not going to apply to everyone, depends on what you want your outcome to be, but I always go overboard on painting the small things. If you're trying to up detail something or make something look better than it was from the factory, one of the big things is being able to see the small details, the little buttons on the pockets, the flaps on the pockets, anything like that. All of those are going to be details that you can call out that they're more than likely never going to from the factory. It's just a cost prohibitive thing for them. So you can call those things out, and don't be afraid to get more detail. The more detail there is, the more realistic it's going to be, because obviously in real life, in reality, a lot of things have really small details that maybe sometimes you don't even notice until you look real close at it. So make sure to paint the small details, the little things, the shoelaces, the eyelets of the shoelaces, anything like that. And there's different techniques to call some of those out and make it easier. I won't cover those in this video, but make sure to go into the details. Just painting the pants a different color, again, if that's what you want, that's great. If you're trying to detail it up more, don't just paint them a different color. Do a base of a different color, and then paint the pockets slightly different, the edges of the pockets slightly different, the little buttons and belt loops and stuff like that. Make sure those are different. Number three for me is thinking that you have to disassemble everything to paint it. Does it help sometimes? Absolutely, especially in vehicles. To paint some of the bigger items, to airbrush them, to spray can them, anything like that. It does help to have it disassembled, so it's easier to paint certain parts of the different colors. But when it comes to action figures, I've had a lot of questions of, well, how do I disassemble it? How do I take the arms and legs off and all this? And while that's one way people go about it, there's very few that I have done that. Usually I paint them as is. If the hands come off, great. If I can get the jacket or whatever, the helmets, the head, stuff like that, the easy things to remove, I go ahead and remove those. I very rarely pop the legs out of the socket, soak them in the hot water, all that to get the arms off. And for me personally, most of my figures that I'm custom painting aren't going to be played with later, so they don't need every little crack and cranny and everything painted perfect. I'm looking for a display piece, more of an artwork kind of deal to set on a shelf and display. So I usually know what basic pose I'm going to go for and paint accordingly. So if it's a driver for a vehicle or something, I know that, well, he's going to be sitting down, and I'm not going to skip painting his, his back and bottom of his legs or anything like that. I also know, hey, his legs aren't going to be bent all the way backwards, so I don't need to paint the inside of that joint. I know his arms aren't going to go all the way up over his head, so I don't need to paint, the joint inside underneath his armpit. You can think of it that way and save yourself some time and save yourself some headache of pulling those things apart, popping them back together, when we all know, as much as they could make them in a way that they're supposed to do that, they're really not. Most of them are really not made that way. Hopefully the new Valiverse stuff will disprove all of that and make all that a lot easier, and you don't have to worry about it. Number 4, something I believe pretty strongly in, is paint and do what you want and what you like. Definitely use other people out there for inspiration. I love seeing other creators and other designers paint things that I don't think of right away, or add a gradient to something maybe I wouldn't. Things like that gives me inspiration to do something myself. Of I really like that. How can I make that mine? I think a lot of people get caught up in trying to emulate or copy, or hey, I want that thing. Well, how do I get that thing? And they try to duplicate it, and then they fall a little short because they didn't know how they did it, they didn't know their techniques, didn't have their experience, whatever it is, and then they get frustrated and quit. I think it goes a long way to just do what you can and what you like. So take inspiration from someone else, but actually go out and say, well, how can I do it? How can I do it my best? Vehicles, figures, anything like that. I think it's very important to make sure that you're doing what you want on your display. There's a few of us out there, myself included, that do things for other people, and that's a little different. You got to read what they do, but at the end of the day, I also do a lot of my work of, hey, this is my work. If you want a custom from me, the type of work that I do. I don't stray from that a lot. I know a lot of people out there, especially in the Marvel categories, do cell shading and different stuff, and that stuff's amazing. It is not my cup of tea. It's not what I want to display. It's not how I want it, and it's not a technique that I've spent a lot of time in. So if someone did ask me for something like that, I'd probably decline and just say, hey, there are other people out here that are better at that. Go and do that. But you got to stick with your style. So find your style and what you want, and you'll get a lot more mileage out of that, so to speak. You'll be much happier with the result. It's going to take practice. It's going to take looking up different tutorials and way to do things. But I think you'll be a lot happier with doing what you want and not trying to simply copy what someone else does. Number 5, and the last one I think is fairly important. I don't think a lot of people maybe don't get started or on long enough to get there, but something that I know I have to keep in mind all the time is to find a stopping point. Every project can go on forever. When you're talking artwork, when you're talking customs, when you're talking, putting more detail into something, you can always continue. It's very important to find a stopping point, to say, hey, okay, I got to this point, stop, let's move on to the next part or the next figure. You can always go back to a figure if you figure out, learn a new technique or something and want that to be applied to that figure. You can always go back and do that later. But I think a lot of people get caught up in whatever it is, detail on a shirt that you're doing or a weapon, and you get detail after detail after detail, and you're hours in, and you're kind of either you're stuck on it, or you're realizing like, oh crap, like I just spent 5 hours detailing this gun. How am I going to do this to the rest of my collection? Or how am I going to take the details from this gun and put it onto this character? That's going to take me weeks or days, and they just give up and move on. I think you can always find a stopping point. It is going to do you more good to learn by moving on from something that you've done and from the points that you've stopped, to have a complete project and be able to look at it and say, yes, I like this, and know where the points are that you need to stop then. Of, I could do a little more detail here, or if I did this, it would match the level of detail I put on this other side. But if you get stuck on that one little thing and just can't move on, I think a lot of people get discouraged and fall off at that point of, I'm just never going to do this, I don't have time for this, whatever it is. I think everyone can get to their point and their stopping point. So I think at some point you've got to know when enough is enough, and know that yes, you could keep going, yes, you could put more detail in it, but you don't have all day, most of us. You don't have infinite time or resources, so you've got to build in a stopping point of, okay, well, I'm going to get to this level and I'm going to move on. Something to go along with that that's a slightly different is, it's also nice to come back with fresh eyes. If you've been working on something for hours during a certain day or on and off throughout the week, it starts getting a little muddy in your brain, in your head, and it's nice to find a stopping point, move on in your mind, be happy with where you're at, and then as you get done with some of the other stuff, then to come back and say, okay, well, this piece, yeah, I could apply this, or I could do this dry brush, I forgot about that, I could do that over here, I did this on this other piece after. So finding a stopping point, it's great. Those are my top 5. I know they're going to be different for everybody. Every customizer, every painter out there, miniature painter, everything else, they're all going to have their own little groups of what they struggle with. Definitely put that down in the comments if there's something on my list that you don't agree with, or if there's something that you think I should add to my list. Definitely let me know and add it down there. Let's discuss. Maybe I'll do 5 through 10 later or something and add it to my top 10. But these are just the things that came to mind when I was thinking about it, that I'd like to put out there and help the community and help other customizers continue to improve themselves and their work. I'd love it if you like and subscribe and still getting most of my videos. 60 to 70% of the people watching them aren't subscribed yet. So definitely subscribe. Make sure you'll be aware then of my new videos coming out. Hit the notification button. It notifies you when a new video comes out, and give me a thumbs up. Like it.